Umberto Eco's first novel was a surprise international bestseller. The Name of the Rose was a complex scholarly mystery by an Italian professor who studies signs and symbols. It was not a book. Its publishers expected to sell over 9 million copies. His second novel was also both critically acclaimed and commercially successful. Now he has published a book of satirical essays called Misreadings, and he joins me now. I want to turn to other things, but this is based on a series of parodies that you wrote back in, what, 59?
Early 60s. Early 60s,
yeah.
Yes. They were literary parodies or pastiche
right.
and erudite jokes in a serious literary journal.
Just to give an example, it is like what happens when somebody sends a copy of the Bible to a publisher, right? And you said, I must say that the first few hundred pages of the manuscript really hooked me. Action-packed, they have everything today's reader want in a good story. Sex, lots of it, including adultery, sodomy, incest, also murder, war, massacres, and so on. The Sodom and Gomorrah chapter with the transvestites putting the make on the angels is worthy of Rabelais. The Noah stories are pure Jules Verne. The escape from Egypt cries out to be turned into a major, and on and on and on and on. That kind of parody. I want to come back to you and all the writings. Tell me what is going on in your country.
When I tried to explain my friend American, well, I found this example. Right. Suppose that now, 1993, America is still governed by Harry Truman.
Yes.
That is exactly what happened in Italy. Mr. Andreotti and these people went in power more or less at the time in which Harry Truman was the president of
Christian Democrats.
And they remained. There was this legend that in Italy we changed government every 6 months. Absolutely untrue. There was a sort of merry-go-round of governments, but it was the same people, the same political class, for obvious reasons, because Italy was a crucial element in the NATO and the anti-communist front. So we had the artificial situation of a country with the same political class in power for 50 years. Right. That is unnatural. That cannot bring but to corruption and everything. Then the situation has changed. It has been enough that the public prosecutor has started an inquiry, and like an avalanche, everything went into
Here's what they're finding out for anyone who hasn't really followed this. Scandal everywhere. Paybacks everywhere. Everybody was skimming off. The whole system, one city after another city, politicians turned out to be been corrupted. Former prime ministers, Craxi and others. You've got Andreotti now accused of being sort of in cahoots with the mafia. This is a prime minister. And people are saying...
I find pretty nice that in a country, finally, people has the courage to examine the whole of the situation. Probably there are other countries in this world in which there is a lot of corruption, and there is not such a complete, I wouldn't use the word revolution, because it is not a revolution, but in any case, you see, an entire country is deciding to put everything upside down.
Right.
The only problem we have in this moment is that this political class has not as yet understood the real purport of the situation. The country is more mature than its political class.
It's more mature than its political class. So what will emerge as a consequence of all this? All these investigations, all these discoveries, all these scandals?
What emerge?
What will be the new Italy?
Well, the new Italy will be probably, I hope, with a new electoral system. The problem is to destroy what has been called the partitocracy, which is a possible form of democracy, but not the only one. A democracy in which the parties were more powerful than the parliament and then the government. A new electoral system will transform, I hope, that's my view, the old parties in clubs able to produce for election groups with a program, and the Italian will vote for those groups, for those persons, for those programs. Until now, they voted for a party. A party meant an ideology, a party meant a sort of family, father, mother, and parties became too much important. Most of that corruption has not been corruption for personal purposes, but for making the party to grow and to survive. That was abnormal. Certainly it was abnormal. I repeat, because for 50 years there was no alternative, while in France or in Great Britain there was the normal alternative between conservative and social democrats, and in Germany too. In Italy it didn't happen. So it's an abnormal situation. Now it's changing. In which way? I don't know. In some way, certainly. In some way. So there will be something new in the next future, I hope.
Yeah. But nothing, just a better and more effective government, not any change of political alignment or anything like that.
Well, you see, this new appointed government is at least the first example of a government designed by the president of the minister without bargaining too much with the parties and selecting persons according to their competence and not to the fact that they were backed or not by the parties. It's already a small change, but as a first step in this evolution, it could be satisfactory. But we have to see what this government makes in the next weeks to work for an electoral reform and so forth. Moreover, it's since October that I am out of Italy. First I was teaching in France, now here in the United States, so I am following all those things with a strange sensation of defamiliarization and participation at the same time.
Tell me about, you didn't start writing or think of yourself as a writer until what? You sat down to write The Name of the Rose?
I finished it that I was 48, so I am a young writer in this sense. You can say that this kind of stuff were literary experiments, because even parody is a literary genre. So I was making what people call creative literature, a term that I don't like even before. But okay, until the age of 48, I considered myself a scholar, and I didn't think of myself as a possible novelist. I don't belong to this kind of scholars that spend their life dreaming of the moment they could write a poem or a novel. No, I was very happy like that. Suddenly, as I said in my first interview, reached the age of 50, instead of escaping with a chorus girl, I wrote a novel.
That's right, okay. In other words, you said a lot of people reach the age of 50 and they escape with a chorus girl or they do something with their life. What you did is wrote a novel.
Well, it was a new change, a new challenge.
Were you surprised by its success?
But
obviously, because it was so overwhelming.
Obviously, yes. I met 2 days ago this great woman who is Helen Wolf, my publisher of the Helen Kurt Wolf collection for Harcourt Brace, and we remember the day we met, and she said, "I like your book. We can try to do it, but you see." 4,000 copies. Okay, I
4,
promise you an advance on 4,000 copies, because I don't believe it's possible to sell more of a book like that.
And how many did it sell?
But in America, I don't remember. But
overall, it sold 7.
But the figure you said 9 million, 10 million. You know, because half of the world don't pay rights, so you don't know how much they sold. So
you've never seen the royalties.
How much they sold in China? You don't know.
Now, did the second book do as well as Name of the Rose?
Yes,
critically was praised.
Comparatively, we consider that it's only 4 years, while the Name of the Rose is 12 years. Right. Comparatively, it's going well. So,
are you writing another novel now?
8 years passed from the second to the from the first to the second. So I want to have 8 years for a possible third, and the rest remains a secret.
What's the joy for you? What is it you like about writing?
I think that the impulse to narrate is a natural human impulse. I think that we make children in order to tell them fairy tales. Yeah. It's so beautiful to tell a story. So I think it's one of the most natural impulse, like food, sex, and those. So it's beautiful to narrate freely. To write a novel, that it means to build up a cathedral with a lot of work. And not every moment is of full joy. There are also moments of suffering, pain.
Suffering and pain in writing for you?
In certain moments in which you don't know where to go, you feel that you have in a blind alley, and then the joy comes later when you're succeeding in solving that. I thought of my last novel as a sort of navigation in which at every chapter I was at the Cape, Good Hope.
Good Hope, right.
And I had to double the Cape. And under the moment I didn't double the Cape, I was really suffering. Since there were 120 chapters in that book, for 120 but subdivided in 10 major sections. For all of those 10 sections, I had to double the Cape, and it was quite an ordeal. But that is a part of the game.
You have said before, which I found fascinating, is that there were two things you wanted to do when you were 21 or 22. One was to write a book, which would outlive you, and the other thing was to have a child, which would outlive you.
Yes, I had two children and 20 books. So I feel
you've satisfied all of your desires.
I feel realized I could have had 20 children and 2 books, but I think for the balance of the world population, it's better.
Do you have time to stay up in the field of semiotics?
I continue to
teach.
To teach.
Yeah.
That too is
writing doesn't detract from that. Writing doesn't detract from it, or
no. I think I am a polychronic person. You know that people split into monochronic and polychronic. The monochronic one are able to make only one thing at a time, and otherwise the polychronic must make several things at a time. Otherwise they cannot work. And so there is a sort of continuous exchange among the things. There are things that I tell in a class to my students, and then they are useful to me for a novel, let's say, or vice versa. So I have the impression to do always the same thing, disguised under different clothes.
Why semiotics for you? What was it about symbols that so...
Semiotics is, for me, not for everybody, is the contemporary form of philosophy, considering the human beings as communicating animals, to give an easy definition.
Marshall Blonsky's been here and talked a lot about semiotics on this program. And next, you continue teaching, and do you come here to visit a lot? I mean, what do you think of America, and what do you think from afar of our new president?
But what I think of America is difficult, because it's 25 years that I come so frequently in this country. For instance, I feel at home in New York, and so I have no more this innocence for. Then you asked about the new
administration. I'm almost out of time, but are Europeans and
the European were pro-Clinton during the election.
They wanted change.
Insofar as they could have an opinion, the general feeling was pro-Clinton. So I'm expecting. I'm expecting a lot of things from this.
Umberto Eco's Misreadings is a collection of parodies written through in the early 50s, in the late 50s and early 60s. Pleasure to have you on the broadcast.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay with me 1 second. We thank you for joining us this evening. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.